I want to share with you, by far, the most common question I get when we bring you one of our longer form segments that you've come to expect here at 7 p.m. Can you guess what it is? Here's a clue. It actually has nothing to do with any of the stories we bring you. When are you due? Yes. To be fair, I am really pregnant. Like, I feel like I'm 12 months pregnant at this point. And the answer, by the way, to all of you who have asked, next week. That said, this pregnancy has really been a long road, in part because it came with years of trying to conceive, followed by months of support from modern medicine. I'm talking about in vitro fertilization, IVF. Let me tell you this, if you're scared of needles, just close your eyes for this next part. It'll only take a second. Here I am, in between newscasts, here at WRAL, injecting myself with different medicines night after night to help my body produce enough eggs so that the doctors can take over with incredible science and help me make a baby. I am extremely fortunate. My company's healthcare plan covers a chunk of the sky-high costs of IVF, and I have the means to cover the rest. Not everybody has the same great fortune. And that's something that President Trump acknowledges in one of his executive orders. So tonight, let's talk about that.
Order up.
It's called expanding access to in vitro fertilization. The goal is to find ways to make it easier for loving and longing mothers and fathers to have children through legislation or regulation clawbacks. It sounds simple enough, but there is something deeper happening here. And you can find it by reading not just the executive order, but a supplementary fact sheet attached to it. Here it is. It says the general U.S. fertility rate is at another historic low. President Trump has talked about this before. Actually, here's a clip from the campaign trail when then candidate Trump laid it out in his signature plain-spoken style. Take a listen.
We want more babies to be born in America. We want more babies. We need them. We need them.
There is some debate over really whether we need to increase the population. One thing, though, that is indisputable is that the birth rate is declining in America and actually here in North Carolina. According to the CDC, between 2022 and 2023, the fertility rate dropped 3%. We did see a small 1% bump between 2020 and 2021, but other than that, we've seen consistent 2% drops over the past 10 years. Now let's zoom into North Carolina. The state projects that by 2040, we will see more deaths than births. That's a net loss of around 93,000 people. But the state isn't sounding any alarms. People are still moving to North Carolina. The fancy word is net migration. And because of that, our state is actually set to become the 7th most populated state by the early 2030s. Now let's zoom back out. The United States is not the only country dealing with the birth rate issue. According to the United Nations, populations in 61 other countries or areas in the world are expected to decrease by 2050. Japan is already seeing it. How about this headline from Newsweek? Japan faces extinction amid birth rate crisis. Extinction? Or how about this headline from Fortune? Japan's population is getting so old that a diaper manufacturer is only making products for adults, not babies. You get the point. Japan's fertility rate dropped to 1.2 births per woman in 2023. Hungary's is similar at 1.38 births per woman. In case you're wondering, the birth rate in the United States is 1.6 births per woman. It's a little higher than in Japan and in Hungary, but still a far cry from the replacement rate of 2.1 children for every woman. Is this a good thing or a bad thing? There are arguments on both sides. I spoke to NC State economist Mike Walden, who has written about this very topic, and he says a smaller population can have its benefits.
There would be benefits in terms of less pressure on resources, probably lower emissions of CO2, so would less congestion on the highways. So there'll be some pluses from that, but there are negatives. If you have a falling birth rate, eventually that could lead to depopulation.
But we also know depopulation can be a problem, especially when it comes to Social Security. Trust fund reserves used to pay retirees are projected to run out in 2035. That's only 10 years away.
And so if you've got fewer people working, but having to care for ever increasing number of people, that increases that dependency rate, and that puts pressure, especially pressure on young households who may be taxed more in order to keep Social Security going, in order to keep Medicare going, et cetera.
The Social Security Administration backs this up. They say we need to raise taxes or reduce benefits. Otherwise, there will only be enough money to pay retirees 83% of what they're supposed to get. So let's bring this back to President Trump's executive order to increase access to IVF, to make more babies in this country. IVF helps people struggling with fertility, and making it more affordable would help them even further. But here's a question. What are we doing to make sure life is more affordable once the child gets here? The average cost of raising a child in the United States is more than $200,000. Yeah, there's a lot more that needs to happen to make things easier for families or for people who want to make families. Fertility is just the beginning.